We're here in Austin, Texas at the 2011 North American Handmade Bicycle Show, talking with Sam Whittingham from Naked Bikes, who is one of the 4 Canadians down here at the show. Sam, can you give us a little bit of your background? I mean, Naked Bikes is probably famous in most people's mind because Lance Armstrong bought one of your bikes once, but there's a lot more to it than that.
Definitely. I mean, that's just, you know, the cherry on top of a whole bunch of stuff underneath. But yeah, Naked Bikes started in Victoria in a little garage in about, what, 1997, 1998, like that. I think I built one bike that year, still being ridden by a good friend of mine who's down in Colorado now. But it just came out of a whole passion I have for bikes in general. And it's, you know, I started right from when I was a little kid. I used to race bikes a lot. Raced with the Maple Leaf for a long time. Was on the track up in Canada. I loved that. And got into this speed bike racing. Some people know me as world's fastest man. Got the land speed record at 83 miles an hour. So a lot of people kind of know me that way too. So I was kind of put different hats on, but they all come back to the same thing, which is the bicycle. I love it. And building bikes for other people and seeing them enjoy that too. Especially, like, I really got into Naked Bikes because when I was racing and building, because I actually have like slightly off proportions, and I realized pretty quickly that, especially at the time, I mean, this is like mid-90s, when a lot of the big companies were really just sort of cookie cutter stamping out frames in small, medium, and large. Well, what if you're not one of those, you know? And I was one, you know. I'm not that short, and I'm not that odd, but I couldn't find a bike that fit me properly. And I thought, if I can't, there's got to be some people out there that really can. So I started building bikes as a way to try to bring quality bikes and a quality riding experience to more people. And I hope and I think over the years I've managed to do that. And that's what I love, is when I hear back, like later on, from somebody that says, I have been riding that bike for the last 4 years and it still is a joy to ride. And to me, that's what I'm after. You know, nobody gets rich in this business, so I'm certainly not in it for the money, but it's the joy you see when people ride a bike. That's what gets me. And I think just to be able to kind of share that with people, that's sort of what Naked Bikes is about.
Okay. Now, do you have any sort of specialization? I mean, in the booth right now you've got some commuter type bikes or urban bikes, but you've also got more of a road bike with some couplers on it and so on. I mean, is there anything where you sort of specialize, or are there any sorts of bikes that you don't do? Like, for example, do you do mountain bikes and road bikes and racing bikes, or?
Yeah, I do. It's funny. Like right from the very beginning, because I think I have this passion, and also because I have a background in like recumbent bicycles, which is kind of a dirty word around here, so we won't say it too loud. But I have a background in all these other types of bikes. I used to commute. I've done lots of touring, track racing, road racing, basically the whole section. The only thing I probably haven't done a lot of, but even I did some of that, is BMX. Okay. And even as a kid, because I grew up through the BMX thing, I did used to do that when I was, you know, small. But trials, I started doing trials last year. I know I'm, what, 38 years old. But I thought I was an old trials guy until I discovered that the guy down the street is 60 and he's just trying to learn trials. So it doesn't really matter to me. And a lot of the bikes I build actually kind of defy category, because to me, I've never tried to pigeonhole. Just like every single person, I can't pigeonhole you as a road cyclist or a mountain biker. I mean, you may, but I just look at anybody who rides a bike as somebody who rides a bike, and I don't care whether you're lying down on that bike or it's got 3 wheels or whatever. You're out there and you're doing it. So that kind of comes through in the bikes that we build too. So a lot of them are, people be like, well, what is that? Well, that's Tom's bike, or that's Joe's bike, or that's Mary's bike. It may not fit into a particular category, but that's kind of the neat thing about custom bicycles, is it really comes down to making the bike specific to the individual.
Okay, so are you primarily steel, or do you work with titanium, carbon?
Mostly steel.
Okay.
It's definitely my material of preference. You can do so much with steel. it's kind of underrated these days because it's been around for so long. But people always say if it was the material that hadn't been around, all the other ones had, and then somebody today at this show introduced a steel bike and showed all the properties that it can do and what it can do, people would go, it's the new wonder material. It truly is amazing how you can manipulate it and what it can be done. Having said that, there's other beautiful materials too. I certainly do a lot of titanium, which is a great material.
So, and this bike here is a tie bike?
No, this is actually stainless steel.
Oh,
this is
okay.
kind of neat too, and I was getting to that because what's happened is, especially these new stainlesses, they're actually even stronger than steel, which is the strongest material. A lot of people think it's tie, but steel's still stronger than that. And now you've got a material that's even stronger, and oh, guess what? It doesn't rust. So you've got kind of the benefits of tie. You can manipulate it way more, and you can add intricate details if people want that, because you can either weld it or silver solder it, or all these kind of technical frame building things that that you can't do with tie. Tie has to be welded, and that's it. So I'm really excited to be working with some of these new steels, and this is one that's made in North America, KBA. So it's a locally produced steel. These guys are here too, and they're awesome to deal with. So I've been starting to get sort of a specialization in working with this material because it doesn't cost a whole lot more than normal steel, and it's got a lot of the benefits of tie without a lower cost.
Now, how come stainless is new? Is it just because I mean, I seem to remember in the past there was some talk about stainless is too heavy, or
this is exactly it, and this is the thing, because we call it stainless because that's the way people kind of understand it.
Right.
The truth is, it's a completely new alloy. What's come out, and there's Reynolds makes it. They call it 953. Some people have heard of that. Columbus does make some. But you're absolutely right. The stainless that used to be available, that they used to make bicycle tubing out of, was horrible. It was really soft, really heavy. It was far weaker than chromoly. But what has happened is that they have developed this new alloy, and more importantly, a new way of drawing the tubes. That's the problem. This alloy has actually been around for a long time, but they didn't know how to draw it or turn it into a bicycle tube, and they figured that out. And as soon as they did that, of course, we went, perfect, that material's ready to use. And so now you've got this incredible new material for making bicycles. It won't be picked up by the big companies probably, because it's a hard material, it's hard on your tools, and for making one bike at a time, no problem.
Yeah.
Adds a few extra minutes. And for us as a custom builder who spends a week making a bike, adding an extra hour or two just means adding a few dollars on at the end, and that's not a big deal. To the big guys who are trying to pump their frames out at about $25 a frame, including paint,
it's just not feasible.
It's not economically viable unless they charge a whole bunch of money for it. And I'll bet you see a couple of companies will probably start to introduce this alloy on some of their higher end exotic bikes or something like that. But what I love is I can introduce on my not that exotic bikes.
Let's go through some of the bikes in your booth and talk about what some of the features are, both specific to the bike and the sort of things that from your perspective make it a naked bike.
Yeah. Okay. So I mean, obviously we kind of talked about this one. This is just a customer's bike, a good customer of ours back in Vancouver. Basic road bike. I brought this because this is a good representation of a lot of what I build. But of course, a show like this, you want to kind of show off and show people what else you can do. So. What we've got back here, you can see there's a couple of bikes that are sort of matching, and this goes back to in 2008. I built a bike that won sort of like 3 big awards at North American Handmade Bike Show. It won Best in Show, President's Choice, and People's Choice, and then it was bought by Lance Armstrong.
Right.
And it's hanging here in Austin at his bike shop, Mellow Johnny's. And we thought, well, NAHBS is coming to Austin. We got to take advantage of this somehow, and so it's been a great relationship working with Mellow Johnny's. We decided to make a series of bikes that were a little more affordable based on that bike. So we did a run of 6 different colors, different sizes, that are based on the original Naked Baba Ganoush, and so it shares a lot of the same. The lines are the same, a lot of the features, but did a few things to make it more affordable. Like the original one had custom handlebars, which I do a lot of custom handlebars, but this one's got, I mean, FSA makes these great shape Metropolis handlebars, which are basically the shape of what I had built. I think they actually based these off the bike I built 2 years ago. I mean, it's funny, every year there'll be things that I do and then I'll suddenly see it. Like, I've gotten kind of known for these eccentric dropouts, which nobody's ever done. They've been done on like old 1920s motorcycles a long time ago, but nobody's done them on bicycles. The year after I did this for that show, they showed up on the track.
Right.
Commuter bikes.
So maybe you should have been patenting some stuff.
Well, I know, but you can't patent it because I stole it from a 1920s motorbike. So.
Right. Right.
And I don't hold that stuff against anybody. I mean, it's not like, I don't know. You can get all bent out of shape over patents, but when I'm building one of a kind, if somebody sues me for patent infringement on something I did first, then I'll get mad. Right. But,
so you've got the eccentric bottom brackets.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, obviously, it allows you a whole new way of tensioning the chain.
Yes.
It was it from your perspective? Was it you were looking at solving a mechanical problem, and this was a cool idea, or was it I want to do something different that aesthetically is pleasing and also solves a problem? What's the process?
Yeah. I'm trying to remember back to when I made the first one. I think basically it may have been as simple as. You know, typically the way you would do that is either sliding track dropouts, which are okay, but you know, you always chew up the paint and they always slip and this kind of thing. The other way to do it, which is a little sleeker, is the eccentric bottom brackets, like tandem bottom brackets. They're big and clunky and there's so much torque down there already. It never made sense for me to put it down there because you need such amount of material. And I think when I built the first eccentric dropout bike, I didn't have the materials I needed. I didn't have an eccentric bottom bracket. I'm like, well, how can I do this? So it's always like that. It's like, well, I can't do it that way. A lot of the things that I build are because what I've got on hand.
Right.
And I thought this was just a neat idea to try out. And it turns out it's actually simpler to make. It's lighter. It's stronger. And I do tons of bikes, like a lot of my single-speed mountain bikes.
Right.
All have these now, and if they can handle the torque, then they never slip.
Now you said the Baba Ganoush, it's a limited series of 6.
Yep.
Are they still available or are they sold?
Yeah, well, as far as I know, I have to talk to Mellow Johnny's because as of the show, I don't know how they're doing, but I know that a couple of them are sold already, and I would guess that there's probably a couple available. Yeah.
Okay. So if someone comes along to you after the show and says, that was really cool, and I'm not in Austin, I'm in Calgary, and I want one. Can they still get one?
Absolutely. I've actually got, basically, if they're here at the show, I made 6. I sold 4 to Mellow Johnny's, and they're all here. Right. And so if people are here, or basically in this part of the States, they go through Mellow Johnny's, but I have 2 at home. Okay. And in fact, 1 is sold already, but I do have 1 left. And it's not painted yet, so you can even pick your color. Okay. Operators are standing by. What's that? Operators are standing by. Yeah. So I do have 1 of these left, and it's because it hasn't been built up or painted. There's still a little bit of room for some custom options. Okay. Now, what about this interesting hole in the top tube, which you're calling the A-hole? Yes. It's become kind of this silly signature piece for me. It's I mean, it comes out of a very practical thing originally. I was building bikes for couriers in Vancouver way back in the beginning, and I had one customer in particular who kept complaining. He says, I always use one of those mini kryptonite U-locks, and I always lock up to parking meters, but my bike is always sliding around and getting dinged up, and you'll see like a lot of people sort of wrap their top tubes because of that. And he said, can you solve this problem for me? And I said, ha ha ha, I'll just put a hole through the top tube. And he went, yeah. And I went, well, okay, it'll work. And so I did it on that first bike, and he loved it. I mean, he was like career, you know. Yeah. And because what it allows you to do is because of the especially the stainless guards here. So you throw it up against the pole, it hits these stainless guards.
Right. It's like a bumper almost.
It's totally a bumper. You put the lock through here around the pole, and it sits on, and then the lock also sits on top of here on another bumper, and it can't slide around. So you can just, throw your bike up repeatedly, lock it up, and it doesn't slide around and stuff like that. There's other ways to do it, but you end up with.
But it's your way.
Yeah, exactly, and it's functional as well as giving a kind of a. I mean, it gives these kind of a 1930s airplane look, like.
Yeah, it does have that sort of Art Deco.
Exactly. Yeah. So it just works with this style of bike, in my mind. Obviously, some people might look at that and go, "What the hell is that?" But
So when you're building a bike for somebody, I mean, how much of it is somebody comes to you and says, "I want a road bike," or "I want a bike, a tuner bike," or how many people just come to you and say, "I really like your philosophy or the type of things you do, and I just want to work with you," and you figure out what kind of bike you want to build?
Absolutely. That's usually exactly how it works.
That more of that than somebody coming with a specific, "I want a road bike and I want steel and I want these angles," and
it's the whole shoot and match.
Okay.
I get people, but the one thing that they all have in common is that they can't find what they want yet. And so either they know exactly what they want, and they're trying to find somebody who can put that all in one place for them. But more and more, especially that was more in the beginning, I think, people would dictate to me because they thought they knew better. And granted, when I'm starting out, maybe they did. But I think I've gotten to a point now where I try to advise them as much as I can, because I've learned a lot along the way about integrating and dealing with customers and fitting and all this kind of stuff. So a lot of people now, they'll come with their specific needs or how they want the bike to feel or ride or a fitting issue, but they'll let me help guide them and come up with the ultimate bike. And that's usually a better way. I mean, I want to know the details as far as what they want in a bike. Or sorry, not the details. That's for me. I want them to come with me with sort of the big picture of what they want the bike to do, and then let me sort out the details.
Okay.
And fit it together for them.
Let's move over to this other bike in your booth, which is quite unique. Leather wrap top too.
Yeah. So
single speed.
We're at NAHBS, so we wanted to bring something that was unique and special, and just kind of try. NAHBS is always my excuse to try out new ideas and do things that they might work, they might not, but let's see what happens and see what the reaction is. So over the last few years, I've kind of got the bikes I've brought to the shows have been really kind of over the top, blinged out, lots of chrome and stuff like that, and I wanted to kind of make something that was more of a distillation of the bicycle. So bring it right down to what a basic bike is, which is pedals, wheels, handlebars, seat, but get rid of all the extra. So you'll notice here there's a lot of stuff supposedly missing. You can't see it anyway. So there's no top nuts, no stems, it's all integrated. It's all there, even the front hub, there's no axle. You can't see the axles. So I made this hub basically to integrate with the dropouts and everywhere. You see, it's just trying to smooth out the whole bike and make it simpler in a way, at least cleaner and look simpler. Of course, making things simple can be quite difficult. But it's getting back to doing a naked bike. So, and what you're looking at here is not paint either. It's just raw steel with a clear coat over top, and all the coloration is actually I just took a torch and it's just heat marking.
Just heat marking.
Heat marking, and then scuffed with some whatever sandpaper and wire brush, and then clear coated. So I wanted a real raw but clean look to the bike. And so it's just, I guess it's like I've kind of gotten known for bikes that kind of shout at you, and I wanted one that kind of whispered at you.
So show the subtlety as well.
Exactly, yeah. And it's probably just an evolution of me as and Naked Bikes as a company. It was sort of, I think everybody do this as you master your skill. you start showing off and you start adding all this stuff, but at some point you get to the point you go, well, we need all this stuff, so let's start taking it back again. But you kind of have to go through that process. You have to go through, and you get down to the essence. And that's, I guess, what we're after here is what's the essence of a bike?
Good morning.
Oh, we're about to start. Just to finish off, I mean,
North American Handmade Bicycle Show.
we'll let them finish the introduction of the show.
Doors should be opening any minute, so be prepared, guys. Get your boots on your market, set, go.
So, getting back to last question that I had for you, somebody looking at getting a naked bike now. I mean, what's the time frame if somebody came to you and said, I really like your bikes, I've been thinking about something for a long time. What's the time frame both for the process you go through and in terms of what your sort of waiting period is? And
wait period right now is about 9 months. And that'll vary a little bit. It's been around there for a few years now, and we try to hold it to that. I think once it starts to get over a year, it starts to be, it starts to become a long time. But what I usually tell people is that wherever we are in the year, think about it for the next season. Especially, it's always touchy right about now, this sort of early season. People are thinking about getting bikes again, and they want them for April and May, and it's like, well,
when the weather gets good and they want to start riding, and
there's just like 3 of us building these bikes, and it's mostly just me building them. It's like we only have so much time. So yeah, it's about 9 months, and as far as like the cost, it's typically I mean, we do the whole range, and I would say average price for a good quality road or touring bike or that kind of thing is typically $4,500.
And that's for the frames, or that's for a complete bike?
That's the complete bike.
Okay.
And the complete bikes, we actually started about $3,000 to $3,500 for a complete bike, but you make a few compromises to get it done.
Right. So. Okay. And if you're moving into something more exotic, like a one-off like one of these, then clearly the price is going up because of the amount of time and effort. And like, for example, this bike here, what would somebody be paying for something like this?
It's always tough to say because it's never it's never made with a price in mind.
Right.
The ones I've made in the past for shows, they typically go for about $10,000, $12,000, maybe even a little more. It really depends on the bike and the customer.
Is this one sold yet?
Nope.
No? Okay. So it's still available?
Still available, yeah.
What size is it?
It's about a 54, 55. Yeah, small to medium.
Okay. And the process that someone goes through, I assume they contact you, and how does it usually develop from there? Yeah,
usually somebody either phones or emails. Email these days seems to be the main way, which is great because then we can keep a record of ongoing conversation.
Right.
Because really, I mean, especially with custom builders, but what we really pride ourselves on at Naked Bikes is like working with the customer to get what they want. And so we'll spend probably more time in conversation with them than we do building the bike. Building the bike now is usually just basically putting tubes together.
Right.
It's not that simple, but what I really want to get right and concentrate on is figuring out exactly who the customer is and what they want and all that kind of stuff. So I spend a lot of time. So when I say like 9 months to get a bike, that's 9 months from when I receive like a small deposit. It's like a couple $100 and say, yes, I'm serious. And from that point on, over that 9 months, we'll actually have many conversations back and forth. And actually that amount of time is good in a way because it allows people to really think about what it is they want.
Right.
And somewhere in there we'll do a fitting. Either they'll come and do a fitting with me, or I've got lots of good ways, either working with other people if they live a long way away, other fit specialists, or we can even do it by basically email and photos and all these other kind of things. And that's basically the process. At some point, about a couple months before they're due to get their bike, I get a 50% deposit.
Right.
And we really nail down exactly what
the details.
And that's sort of when we're like, okay, this is what we're going to do.
Okay.
Can't change our mind now, or it gets expensive.
Yeah.
And basically the rest is due when they pick up the bike, or I ship it to them. How it works.
Okay, well, we've got a lot of people starting to show up at your booth again, so the doors are open. So the website is NAHBS.com?
No, it's timetogetnaked.com.
Timetogetnaked.com. Okay, talking with Sam Whittingham. So thank you, Sam.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure.